For the most part, when you're talking to most people, the vast majority of people, and you're having a conversation, most of them are simply waiting for their turn to talk. They are thinking of how what you're saying affects them personally. And it's basically just in their head of like, what does this say about me? How does this affect me? And waiting for their turn to talk. That's the majority of people of what they're doing. Now, the reason why this occurs is because human beings have two different modes that I've talked about a lot. You've heard me talk about this. I call it coping versus thriving. And so because most of us are in coping and not thriving, we lack the bandwidth to really think about other people in a deep way. So a lot of the time when say with the church, when they'll get people to do some charity work, believe it or not, that's actually a very powerful thing, because the problem is the coping gets too intense and it almost densifies the thoughts to where the person can't think clearly. They're too much in coping and trying to solve their own issues. So the average person who you're talking to is really just zeroing in on their wants and needs. Now, whenever you're doing marketing, as an example, and then I'm gonna lead into a lot of motivational stuff for yourself. Basically, you want to understand yourself, and you want to understand yourself in a very honest way. And the more that you can understand yourself in an honest way, the more that you can also understand other people in an honest way, and then you can also market to them, but also you can drive yourself and you can improve yourself. So what I've seen oftentimes is that marketers are some of the most self-aware and high-thinking people I've ever seen. Oftentimes marketers can even be very spiritual people. The reason why is, if you're doing marketing, you're probably studying people's most petty, low-level wants and needs at a very high level. And when you do that, it makes you realize your own petty level wants and needs. It's the ultimate audit. Whenever you're marketing to other people, it's an incredible audit of yourself and your own tendencies, because you're going to see it in yourself. It's the craziest thing. I've seen it before where online people will do what's called a CTA. What does a CTA mean? Call to action. And the CTA is usually based on doing them a favor. So they'll say, you know, it would really help me out if you would swipe up. Or it would be super great for me if you could do this. Or I've even seen it where people will ask for their videos to get shared. And they'll say, guys, you should be sharing these videos. I work really hard on them. And why aren't you guys sharing them? That kind of language will get you nowhere. It's not to say that people are just out for themselves. It's just that when you're marketing or trying to persuade somebody, trying to appeal to altruism is a very low-end strategy. I want to be clear here that we all have different sides, so we're going to delve into this. For example, on 9/11 during the terrorist attacks, some people ran into the building to save people. So let's not get into some pessimistic worldview about human nature here. Likewise, people help the homeless. I mean, people do all sorts of great charitable stuff. Look at Kickstarter or crowdfunding. These are beautiful things. So people do that. But if you think that you're going to market in the same way that, you know, in the same way you get someone to run into a burning building on 9/11 or something like a charity, and that's going to be your marketing, you are really in deep, deep trouble. So you've ultimately got to make it about other people. And the other thing is this: when you make it about other people, now you have power. You're like the sun, and you're persuasive. But as soon as you make it about yourself and what you're getting out of it, your power is dropping and you have very limited ability to persuade. Okay? And so the basic way that it works in order to move people is that you give these little bits of value, and you have a clear understanding of how you kind of dole them out. You dole them out at an appropriate level to where they're at and to how much they're receptive to it. You dole out the value, dole out the value, dole out the value. Now, at a certain point, what happens is your value has increased to them because they're getting more value from you. And then now you can make a suggestion of a win-win. You can promote a win-win. Let me give an example. Let's say you want to talk to somebody. What a lot of people will try to do is they just walk up and they kind of jump in there and they start talking to somebody. They get up in their face. And that makes people really uncomfortable, and it's a horrible way of doing it. What if instead, let me give some clear examples here, just so that you can just put it right there, it'd be perfect. Let me give an example. So let's say that you stand up, okay, walk over there. Now, go back here. Now say that you were going to talk to someone else, go all the way back. What a lot of people would do is the person's walking to them, okay, walk towards me, and then they'll go, okay, so, you know, they'll start going like that. And what's happening is, now look at the calibration there. I have no value to him yet. There's no value there. He knows nothing about me, and I'm trying to get compliance prior to there being any kind of value. Do you see that? Now move back there. Now, the first thing to understand is that human beings were biological creatures, which means that we're trying to save time and energy. One of the defining factors of us as human beings is we're always trying to maximize what we get while saving time and energy. If I tell you to ride a pony to New York bi-coastal, you don't want to do it because you're going to take more energy and you're going to waste time. So you're always trying to save time and energy. Even being here, one of the major reasons that you're here is to save time and energy. You're here because I figured some things out, and you would like to learn those things to save time and energy and to be able to maximize benefit. That's why you're here. So I have to understand that. Now, let's say as an example that someone's walking, and walk with me, and here, now go back for one moment, and I blew it there. Here's the key. He wants to save time and energy. His only thing in his DNA is to save the time and energy. Nothing else. There's nothing else. Because he doesn't know me at this point if it's a stranger. So if he was walking by, and he's trying to walk over to there. If I'm asking for compliance early, I'm not going to get that compliance. Or sorry, if I'm asking for receptivity, that word can be misused. If I'm hoping to get receptivity early, I'm not going to get receptivity because of the fact that he doesn't know me. So if he's walking this way anyway, now let's say that I turn like this, and now we're a little bit tight here, but just get the idea, and I walk a little bit in front, but allow him to walk, but to make it very comfortable for him to walk in any which way he'd be walking anyway. So you're walking, and then I throw out, we're going to go a little slower than human life here because it's so small of a runway. But if you're going, and basically I make a little comment. Now I'm not asking a name. I'm not saying what's your name. I'm not saying where are you from. I'm not asking for any response because that requires thinking from him. I'm just making little jokes, little side comments, and things that give him positive emotions. Well, now what's happening is his emotions are raising, and I have a degree of value. Now, if he sees that there's getting value coming from me, at that point, I might turn a little bit, and then he might stop to talk. Then I might say, what's your name? And he might be more likely to respond because there's value there. Okay, we'll go back here. So also, if I was going to engage with someone while we're out, the way to do it politely is, again, the number one thing is respect for the person. Say this with me. Respect for the person. Now, great marketers, they respect the person. People who are asking for a favor are being disrespectful. But what they're doing is they're trying to shame them and guilt trip them. It would really help me if you did this, and it'd be really charitable if you did that. You're not respecting that person has their priorities and their wants and their needs. That's not a win-win. Great marketers are good at structuring a win-win. So if he's walking like this, and then we'll walk slow, and then get him to laugh once. Now, why laughter is so good? Laughter is like the best thing in the world. Who doesn't like laughter? But it could also be something interesting or clever, right? But whatever it is. Then at a certain point, I'm going to look into his pupils, and I'm looking for that receptivity and an interest to talk further. When I see the pupils change, when I see that when I make a joke, he's laughing, when I see that his pupils are changing, when I see that he's looking to engage with me, then I might be able to stop. Now maybe I'm going to say more things, but I'm not going to ask a question. Why am I not going to ask a question? Requires receptivity and responsiveness. Basically what it is that now I'm asking him to think, which is to use energy that he wasn't ready to use yet. Now, as he's getting more funny stuff from me, because I'm kind of just making my own little riff and rant and nonsense, and he's loving it because maybe we're out, then what's funny is now he might start to get afraid that he's going to lose the fun that I'm providing. So he might even say, what's your name? Where are you from? And go on his default conversational things because he's now almost trying to get my approval. Or at that point, if I see receptivity, but he's not going to do that, then I can say, how are you doing? And so on and so forth. Okay, so move back here. Now, also, I would watch his body language. So if he's walking like this, okay, I said some funny stuff, then we started chatting, I would look in his eyes, and what I'm looking for are him to begin to do this. Okay, do you guys see that? They start going like that. What is that a sign when someone starts to look away a little bit? They're thinking of going. Now, if they're thinking of going, I can actually calibrate and I can turn like this and make it as though it was my idea, walk, and then keep saying great stuff and getting further investment, or if that person's trying to get to their other group, bring their other group into it and keep the fun going. Then I can suggest somewhere super cool to go. This is basically what we're doing in marketing, okay? Have a seat for me. Thank you. Appreciate it, bro. Thanks. So this is basically what we're doing in marketing, okay? That's called building a funnel. So as an example, let's look at a funnel. If you look at, say, the videos that I've done, what you have on the front end of the funnel is you go into an SEO program such as vidIQ, okay? And you look at what people are looking up. That's the first thing that you have to see. You have to see the search volume of what people are looking up. You have to go to where people are. And so in the past, I'd have these weird experiences where I'd go to a city like, say, Vegas, or I've had a couple different cities where I did this. Miami was another one. And I'll shoot 2 different videos that weekend. One video I shot in like 20 minutes. Another video I spent the whole weekend shooting. Back then, I didn't understand what SEO was. So I'd shoot 2 videos, and say the one that I spent 4 days on, as a content creator, if you don't know what search engine optimization is, wouldn't you think that the one that you spent 4 days on that's a far superior video would get more views? Yeah. It can, in theory. It's the one that is more related to search volume. So, for example, in dating, say that it's a guy, that search volume would be something about insecurities, usually now, here's the key, okay? In life, you have what's called the pyramid. In a pyramid, the top of the pyramid is what? Narrow. Narrow and small. What is the characterization of the bottom of the pyramid? The base. It's very big, right? So most people are at the base. That's where all the search volume is. That's where your search volume is. So that is why anyone who teaches, say, money making is probably going to put a bunch of Lamborghinis and mansions in it, because the average person thinks a Lamborghini and a mansion will make them happy. That's not true. They also won't make you unhappy. They're just a kind of a bigger house or kind of a faster car. Your happiness is going to be much more dependent on what you have going on inside yourself. Your emotional addictions, your trauma, your ability to focus on the positive, gratitude, way more related with that than if you have a house that's twice as big. And if you want the proof of that, it's rather simple. Most people in America are miserable, and yet a lot of people would say it's the best country. So there's your proof right there. We don't need to even, that's an open, closed case. You don't even need any more proof. So the proof's all around you. So, I mean, if you told most people living in a third world country that they could have access to the things that even the most broke person here has access to, and in exchange they just had to be happy about it, they would agree within 2 seconds. Another example that I've often given is if you were to ask a lot of men if you could have intimacy with, 80% of women whenever you want for the rest of your life, but you just have to agree to be in a good mood, would you agree to be in a good mood? And most guys would say yes, because they think that that would lead to happiness. But in fact, about half our population already has that, and arguably that could be called women. They couldn't have intimacy physically with a guy anytime they want. There's not one girl who any of you guys that are not in a committed relationship, and even many of you who are, there's not one girl who, if she just said, I'm just going to slide down it, you would stop them from doing it. It's the truth. And yet, for most of you, if you could have that in reverse, you'd think you'd be happy, but are most women that you see in society instantly happy because of that? Does that make them happy? No, they just have some other thing they want. Whatever thing you have, you want some other thing. You have it, you live in a beautiful first world country, you want some other thing, you want some other thing, you want some other thing, you want some other thing. Happiness is not about getting a Lamborghini or a mansion or about getting intimacy or things like that. Happiness is about what's going on inside yourself and then creating a life that makes sense. But most people don't know that. They're clueless. They believe, due to marketing, that you need a mansion and a Lambo and intimacy and da-da-da-da-da-da. So because of that, that's why most marketers will pump that. Unfortunately, it's a self-reinforcing cycle because it furthers those misbeliefs, right? Because for example, you guys know the whole fake news thing and clickbait? You guys know about that? Yeah. That's a really big issue, right? So, why does all this clickbait and fake news exist? Because people click it. Yeah. And then it reinforces those crazy beliefs. Most basic example there, we talk about a shark attack or a plane crash or a terrorist attack as a big scary thing. When what's going to kill all of us? We said this the other day at Free Tour. What's going to kill us? Cancer, heart disease, diabetes that's self-inflicted for most people, stroke, this really basic stuff, right? It's like if the news was being honest, they would be broadcasting those statistics every day and scaring people. But they're not doing that, and they're probably even taking money from fast food companies that are causing those problems and putting it in the news. So, you could argue that fast food kills more people than the worst, most horrible bad guy, right, or bad guy organization. And yet they would be, if they were taking money from a bad guy organization, that'd be viewed as immoral, but they'll take money from a fast food organization. I'm not suggesting not to or making any calls to action here. I'm just making a point of the silliness of the whole thing. The whole thing's just ridiculous. So basically what you do is to make an SEO video that's high SEO, you pick something where there's a high level base thing at the bottom of it, okay? And that's basically how people are thinking or operating. And then what happens, you put out a video on that topic, and if you can search engine optimize it, you could wind up with all these views on it. Now, why do you think a niche-based teacher is able is able to be successful, what is the real key? What are the 4 main mega niches that sell on the internet? What do you think? There's 4 that are proven. Health, wealth, relationship, and higher purpose. Now, if you talk about any of those 4 things or a niche within those 4 things, you can become famous, and here's why. Because people will search these things and they'll look for help. If they find you, they will start watching you, and the glue that holds them there is that you're talking about one of their 4 main concerns. Now, these are the 4 main concerns that people will pay, okay? There's a lot of things that you guys would think are really cool that I do. Lots of them. There's so many that are really cool that I do in life that I'm super passionate about, but I probably couldn't get you to pay me money to teach it to you. But if you're having a fire going on in your life, you will pay a lot of money to have a fire company come and put the fire out. So you've got to pick areas where the person is literally on fire, okay? If you don't have the kind of money you want, that can create chaos in your life to where you're on fire. Relationships, if you're having a problem with your spouse and you're about to go through a costly divorce or you're going to lose access to your kids or whatever it is, again, that's a very, very costly fire. If you can't meet somebody and you have gone months and months or years without intimacy, that's like your body's on fire. If you're having problems connecting to your higher purpose, that niche, that can be huge because people struggle with spiritual groundedness. And when somebody can show answers or direction on that, again, they're on fire. If somebody's dying of cancer or maybe doesn't have the body that they want to live in, it's like they're on fire. And so they're going to be very passionate. And what that does is it creates the glue. Here's why this is so critical in niche-based marketing. If you don't go niche-based and on something that people would pay for, your competition is too steep. Why would somebody watch you when they could watch a Michael Bay movie? What is the budget of a Michael Bay movie? Hundreds of millions of dollars. What is the quality of the actors? How do the actors look? Look at what is the reach? It's too high. That's why when you do niche-based videos, if you actually put in all sorts of fancy graphics, like the most crazy graphics, like if I were to do a video for my company and put in the most incredible graphics, I've done that on occasion for fun. Really, I kind of just do it to entertain myself. But if I do that, nobody cares. Nobody says, oh, those graphics were so awesome, because they weren't watching me for that. They weren't watching me for that purpose. There's other better people that they can watch for that purpose. So you've got to look at where your lane is and understand what your lane is. This is why I never tried to be better with women by getting super jacked in the gym. I've been training since I'm 26. I've been in the gym for years. Sometimes I've got about 16.25-inch arms. I've got wide shoulders. I have a muscle mass from years of training. I've been at 6% body fat before. I'm overweight right now. I'll probably go down to maybe 13% and keep it there for most of my life. So I've been getting back on my fitness this year. Point being though, why would I never try to get super buffed as my way of, say, attracting the opposite sex?
You can't win that.
I'm not going to win that battle. If that's the main area that I were to invest my time and energy, I'm going to lose because I'm not willing to use steroids. And a lot of guys that are super buff, they're using steroids, for being real, and I'm not willing to. And look, let's be honest. In the realm of, like, I mean, this is like a ridiculous thing to say, but have you guys ever seen the size of my calves? Talk about the most useless muscle to have huge. I have gigantic calves, okay? And guys come up to me all the time and they're like, how do you have these tree-like calves? And I'm like, what's your workout routine to grow these calves? And I'm like, I got to be honest with you. I don't even trade my calves. A lot of it's just genetic. I will go in the gym when I'm there and do a couple calf raises, but my calves will be the size of like a giant chicken bone within, bigger within like 2 seconds because it's genetic. So I'm not saying that genes is everything. For sure, you can get really buffed in the gym and beat genetics, but why am I going to try to do this thing where I don't work on my personality and instead I put that time and energy into getting super built? What's going to happen? And by the way, when I go out, I see all these super built guys sitting in the corner, mean mugging me while I'm having a blast. I'm having a great time. They're mean mugging me because they thought if they got to a certain size, people were going to give them attention. Likewise with money. Okay, if you guys had, say, this house, would you think that you could just meet people super duper easily with a house like this? I got to tell you the truth. This house, I've lived in way bigger houses. It's actually the smallest house I've lived in in 3 or 4 years. I've had way bigger houses. I have friends that have houses that are, 10 times the size of this with huge lots, and they do parties on it. And if I just try to say, oh, I have the coolest house, and that's my lane for winning, even with a house like this, I'm going to get outcompeted. There's going to be other men that have bigger estates, bigger properties, and inviting the opposite sex to way cooler properties that are way more upscale. So if I do a party even here, I'm not going to try to make it this most lavish party, because I'm going to lose. I'm going to lose to Hugh Hefner. I'm going to lose to my old roommate where we used to do parties together on this giant estate. I'm not going to win that battle. So instead, what I do if I have a party here is I make it the most fun party. Because what's funny is I can easily compete on making it the most fun party of the year. And a lot of people used to say that to me. They're like, this was the most fun party I've been to all year. So I can make it goofy. I can get a big circle and get everybody dancing in the middle of it and do silly things that they'd feel too snooty to do at a more high-end party and make them have more fun. I can bring my skanky female friends that like to hook up with like every guy, get them to tell all the other girls that they should hook up with guys, create a non-judgmental environment, and it just, the energy just gets like super crazy, and like between everybody dancing and having fun in a low judgment environment, you just created the most fun party of the year. So I don't compete in areas that I'm not going to win. This is important why I'm saying this, because I'm going to get you to really flesh out where your strengths are, and I don't want you to try to compete in areas where you're not going to win. It's a waste of your time for the most part. There's counterexamples, I get that, but it's primarily a waste of your time. So when we're auditing ourselves today, I need you to really look at where you have strengths. Now, as far as niche-based marketing, and this is something that you may not wind up doing, but I at least want you to understand the principles of it for strength finding. If you go based off your niche, then the way that it works, here's a bit how it works for me. Is there anybody in this room who is more kind of over the top to meet me than to meet a movie star? Does anybody here in this room feel that way? Okay, so think about it this way. So there's a decent chunk of the room that is more like jaw drop to meet me than, say, like, you know, a Tom Cruise or Robert De Niro or some movie star, right? Come have a seat. So we have to ask ourselves a question: what did I do to be able to do that? Why was it that I was able to create that effect? That's kind of weird. That doesn't really make any sense. That's super weird. The reason I'm able to do it is because I stuck to those 4 main mega niches, and then I hammered in deeper than a more generalist would do on that topic. And I talked very, very deeply to your deepest psychology, to your deepest needs, the things that are very specific to you. That's why if you love my content or other niche-based teachers' content, you show it to your friends and they don't get it, because they're not in a place where they're on fire on that issue. So normally, if you loved a movie that much and it was that good of a movie, you show it to your friends and they all love it. They're like, that was the best movie. But in niche content, you show it to your friends, and because it's not an area that they're on fire that's super relevant to them, hyper relevant, they just don't even get it why you're showing this to them. It's weird. They think it's weird. It's like you revealed some weird issue you're having to them, basically, is like how they interpret it. Like, you having a problem with this? Like, okay, cool. It's, so that's why what you do is that to become famous on the internet, generally what you do is you create content in an area that is a really, really big problem for people, and that you can provide solutions that are huge, and you zero in on how to find solutions to those problems. But then what happens as they start watching you, you become like a movie star to them. And then you can include other things. You can show who your kids are. You can show what your lifestyle is. You can show who your friends are. And they get to know you, and you become a best friend. I have many people who I watch on YouTube who I feel like is like a best friend through the screen. It's kind of crazy. That's the way that it works. So you've got to zoom in on the exact areas that you can make an impact and that people are willing to compensate you. They're willing to compensate you. You can make a huge impact, and you can zero in on their specific needs, okay? And so what I've kind of covered here, I've covered 2 quick principles. 1 is showing that people are in their world, and 2 is thinking about where you have a unique strength and areas that you can make a hardcore impact. Now, what I just covered there was internet marketing and YouTube content. When you're in a niche, there's only going to be a certain number of people in here where that's your main job. So that's fine. But what I do want to make you understand is that whatever it is that you're doing in life, you have to understand where your strength is, what other people want realistically, and how to connect to that and make an impact. That's how you get very successful.